know, it may just be me, but I really got a feeling like we could catch fire and have a great season, huh? Now, who's with me?
Woo! The electric in the air!
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be
The Cleats First, Logic Second Football Podcast with your hosts, Alexander Lauber and Phil Almodovar.
Welcome, one and all, to the Cleats First, Logic Second Football Podcast. We are here, third episode this week, looking back at the January 2021 transfer window with our transfer roundup. Today, Phil, we will be tackling the Premier League. Some interesting business there, not necessarily the type of business you'd expect from the Premier League, but good business to dig into nonetheless.
Absolutely. A total of 86 departures for a £25.2 million income, 46 arrivals for a total of £78 million in transfer expenses.
Definitely some decent numbers there, but why don't we just jump straight into it and let's look first at Liverpool. Liverpool, we know this season has been in shambles, really, with their injury woes, still hanging in the table and still not necessarily out of the title fight completely, but having to play midfielders in the defense hasn't helped them at all. Their biggest thing going into the transfer window was tightening the defense, bringing in people. At first, they didn't look like they were going to do anything, but after Joel Matip got hurt, it looked like they needed to jump into overdrive in bringing in more defenders. And those exactly were their two ins. Ben Davies from Preston North End, £1.67 million paid on that transfer fee for his £2.16 million valuation. So good business there. Will be interesting to see how he adjusts to the Premier League and getting thrown into the fire straight away. But speaking of which, Ozan Kabak from Schalke on a 6-month loan with the option to buy, his current market value at 22.5 million euros. So two good additions there. As far as outs, both 6-month simple loans. Sepp Vandenberg going back to Preston North End, his current market value at £1.62 million. And Takumi Minamino, we've seen that he hasn't necessarily panned out as Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp would have liked, but not giving up on him. Going out to Southampton on a 6-month loan, his market value currently sitting at £9 million.
And Alex going to the other team in Merseyside. Everton bringing in another piece to the attack in Joshua King from Bournemouth on a 6-month loan. In terms of players going out, lots of loans out, the most important being Yannick Bolasie to Middlesbrough after not really being able to get into the side. 6-month loan there. Cenk Tosun going to Besiktas on a 6-month loan. And Jonjo Kenny, the young right back who previously was at Schalke, going out to Celtic on a 6-month loan.
Definitely some decent business there in getting rid of some of their surplus. Now, if we make our way to North London and we look at Tottenham, nothing much happening there for Tottenham. No ins this window at all. 13 players loaned out in total, but none notable. Most of them younger academy kids seeking experience outside of the club. Not much to be said there, Phil.
No, and Spurs were a club that we were expecting to maybe do something this window, especially with their given situation falling out of the race seemingly for Champions League at the moment. In terms of Champions League, we moved to Leicester City, who are currently in that race very much. They did not move anything into the club, however, did get rid of some of their excess. Demarai Gray from Leicester City to Bayern Leverkusen for £1.8 million. Islam Slimani from Leicester City to Olympique Lyon on a free transfer, along with 5 other players loaned out.
When we look at another team that was, at the time of the Transfer Bonanza special, very in the thick of things, but have fallen off the radar since, we look at Southampton with their ins, Takumi Minamino, like we had mentioned, from Liverpool on a 6-month loan. And as far as outs are concerned, Shane Long has been sent down to the Championship on a 6-month loan to Bournemouth. Current market value of him, £2.52 million. Three others loaned out, again, aside from Shane Long, not many other notable names.
Heading over to Manchester City, Filip Stevanovic bought from Partizan for a fee of £7.65 million and then subsequently loaned back to the Serbian side for 6 months. Other than that, Manchester City didn't really make any other big moves. A few other players were loaned out, but no names big enough for this list.
Staying in Manchester, let's go over to Manchester United, where the only in for the club this transfer window was Amad Diallo, who went straight down to their U23 side, coming in from Atalanta at an £18.9 million transfer fee. Value at the time of the transfer was £13.5 million. Good young prospect in Diallo. Unfortunately, not necessarily something to address the right side of the attack right now. Something that we discussed in the transfer bonanza being a big concern to United. We'll see how that moves forward. But as far as outs, some positives did come out of this window. Timothy Fosu-Mensah off to Bayer Leverkusen on a £1.53 million move. Permanent move, that is. Jesse Lingard off to West Ham on a 6-month loan, €9 million or £9 million market value on him, and a phenomenal start, netting 2 goals in his very first game against Aston Villa. It's nice to see, with everything that Jesse Lingard has went through over the last couple of years, him picking up form and him going back to the potential that we knew that Jesse Lingard had at a younger age and being able to get some of that out. We'll see how that continues. Marcus Rojo, who hadn't featured much at all for Manchester United, moving to Boca Juniors on a free transfer, £5.4 million market value on him. And Odion Ighalo, his dream of playing for Manchester United has came to an end. As in January, his loan ended, and to no one's surprise, his move was not made permanent and he became a free agent. I'm not sure off the top of my head where he ended up, but on top of that, 5 other players have moved out of Manchester United on loan, no one of note.
Alex, I'm pretty sure he ended up in Saudi Arabia. I do not remember the exact name of the club, but that deal was reached this past week. So he will be playing, just not in England. In terms of, but going back to London, Chelsea did not make any moves in, which is not a big surprise, especially after that huge summer of spending. In terms of moves out, though, there were a couple. Lucas Payzon going to Braga on a free transfer. Danny Drinkwater getting loaned out to Kasımpaşa in Turkey. And Fikayo Tomori being loaned out to AC Milan on a 6-month loan. There were a couple other players loaned out, but those are the main 3 there.
Staying in London, let's look over at Arsenal, and a pretty eventful window, all considered, for Arsenal. We saw 3 ins. Omar Rekic coming in from Hertha Berlin on an undisclosed fee. This was part of I don't know if it was undisclosed, but it was a minimal fee coming in and joining the U23 side from Hertha Berlin. This was part of the Matteo Guendouzi loan transfer and that agreement to have him come back the other way. Matt Ryan coming in from Brighton on a 6-month loan to back up Bernd Leno. Definitely a great move for a experienced backup who is set to be a free agent at the end of this window. So I guess we'll see how this pans out. If it works out at Arsenal for Matt Ryan, definitely a potential option for the next couple of years, locking down a solid backup and someone to help split the time from Bernd Leno. And Martin Odegaard coming in from Real Madrid, another simple 6-month loan, but talks are with Odegaard's stance on Zidane and the fact that Zidane hasn't really used Odegaard that much so far into his tenure. Might look to stay in North London if his loan is successful. I haven't seen too much of him, but from what we've seen, things look pretty good so far, so we'll see how that pans out. As far as outs are concerned at Arsenal very successful in moving on a lot of the deadwood at the club, even though you might not have gotten the money that you would have wanted to, or you could have in other circumstances. Sead Kolasinac on a 6-month simple loan to Schalke will be coming back after that unless some sort of agreement is found with them or another club. Socrates was released and subsequently moved on to Olympiacos. Mesut Ozil was allowed to move to Fenerbahce after coming to a termination agreement on his contract. Shkodran Mustafi off to Schalke in Germany on a free transfer, again after a mutual termination. And then as far as other outs, William Saliba on a 6-month loan to Nice, Ainsley Maitland-Niles on a 6-month loan to West Brom, Joe Willock on a 6-month loan to Newcastle. All great moves for the three of them, great for their development. We'll see where they pan or how that pans out and where they play into Mikel Arteta's future plans. But on top of that, there were 5 other loans, a few other quiet under the rug releases or free transfers, but no one of note there.
Yes, and Alex, we added before in the Bonanza a bonus club of Sheffield United. Nothing really to mention there. Unfortunately, Sheffield United didn't make any major moves, which, given the current situation, isn't exactly unexpected. However, Sheffield United, will see if they could pull through in the relegation fight. They have found a run of decent form. Alex, we'll see how that goes. In terms of other notable moves throughout the Premier League, Morgan Sanson from Marseille coming to Aston Villa for £14.22 million. Jesse Lingard, like we said before, to West Ham from Manchester United on a 6-month loan. And lastly, Josh Maja, originally Sunderland's striker, had moved on to Bordeaux, had a shaky stint there. He's coming back to England now with a vengeance. 6-month loan to Fulham with an option to buy. We'll see how he does in London.
So that wraps it up for the teams that we covered in the Transfer Bonanza and other notable transfers. Phil, I have a feeling similar to the Ligue 1 episode, our opinions are going to be pretty similar as to the winner and the loser of this window. Phil, where do you stand on the biggest winner?
Now, Alex, there are a few clubs that you could say were the biggest winner in the Premier League. A lot of clubs were able to get what they needed, Liverpool being one. And in terms of in all the moves in total, really strengthening the squad, helping the squad out with everything that they did, I think I will pick Arsenal to be my biggest winner. Martin Odegaard, of course, being a player that Arsenal needed to fill the void at the central attacking midfield position, while not being an expensive move as well on a 6-month loan. Also being able to snag Matt Ryan, a decent backup keeper, with Runar Runarsson showing that maybe he's not ready yet. And of course, getting out a lot of the dead weight and also being able to ship Joe Willock and Ainsley Maitland-Niles off to clubs where they could get first team minutes and really develop, because they weren't exactly getting those minutes under Arteta, and it really shows the hunger of Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Joe Willock to want to go out and play for clubs who are currently in relegation battles and try to prove themselves to Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, and at the same time, I won't go pointing fingers at certain people, but at the end of the day, if players aren't playing as much as they'd like to, and they are influential in the dressing room, I'm sure that does have a negative effect. So moving out Kolasinac, Socrates, Ozil, and Mustafi, I'm sure that does change the mood in the dressing room. It makes Arteta's selection choices a lot simpler and makes, those voices chirping in the background a lot more quiet. And, it just adds to the harmony in the dressing room. As far as the ins, like you said, Rekic is something for the future. If that pans out, great. If it doesn't, we'll see how that goes. Matt Ryan, like I said, and like you said, runner Alex Runnerson off to a couple of shaky appearances. Definitely will be good to give some weight off of his shoulder and allow him to push while not necessarily pushing him straight into the fire. As for Matt Ryan, we know how established he is. He's coming up to the prime of his career, so definitely a decent move on loan. And like I said, if there's the potential to extend that long term on a free with a keeper of Matt Ryan's quality, like I said, prem established, someone who can carry a lot of the weight in the cup competitions confidently. Not a bad look there. Martin Odegaard again, whether it comes to relieving Emile Smith-Rowe at cam and alleviating some of the pressure there, or even playing him on the right side. There's a lot of options there and great quality coming into the club there. So now if we look to the other side of the coin, Phil, who do you see as being the biggest loser in this transfer window?
Well, Alex, this is going to seem really biased, but I'm going to look to Arsenal's North London rivals in Spurs just from the fact that they didn't really do much. No real players being brought in to help in their race for a Champions League spot. No help for Harry Kane added, and the fact that he's out right now. It looks like Vinicius is going to be that main option up top still with Harry Kane out, which so far hasn't really worked exactly how Mourinho has wanted it to. And just in general, moves breaking down. Dele Alli was supposed to be leaving the club. They were dissatisfied with him at Spurs, and the move never happened. Whether it was on Spurs' end or on PSG's end, the move never happened. Spurs were never able to get the deal done, and that could hurt them in the end.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, bias aside, I think it's definitely a disappointing window for Jose Mourinho. Like you said, Harry Kane dropping out of the side. It seems like with Harry Kane, this is about the time of year that he usually drops off due to injury, and it seems like there's potential with Carlos Vinicius, but whether he's a direct replacement, I don't know. So there's definitely challenges there. I don't think that Tottenham did a good job in moving out the misfits. There's talk that the Dele Alli transfer broke down because they couldn't find a replacement for him. But being that Dele Alli isn't playing at all to begin with, and a lot of that central attacking midfielder onus is put on Ndombele as well as Lo Celso, it kind of, you scratch your head at that move and them not moving that out, even if it is just on a loan with the option or obligation to buy. I think some of the other misfits, whether they are used or not, will be interesting to be seen. But like I said, just not adding anything and not subtracting anything leads to my valuation of Tottenham as being the big loser of this transfer window. But again, there wasn't a lot of, to be fair to them, there wasn't a lot of business to be had this window. There wasn't money to be thrown around, nor is there usually from, Tottenham, to be fair. So, is what it is, but disappointing nonetheless.
Absolutely, Alex. We could have seen a lot more from Spurs this window and didn't. And I think that wraps us up for the Premier League for this transfer window for our roundup. Alex, lots of big moves for some of these clubs that could contend for a European competition spot. We'll see how it all plays out. For tomorrow, we will be going into the Bundesliga, how their transfer window shaped up. Until then, have a great day and meet first, soccer second.